Hiya folks, I'm sorry about the noise you're going to hear in the background. I've been waiting for it to stop for a couple hours and it just never stops, but it seems to have settled. I think they're doing garbage out here and they're cutting down a tree over there, so I'm going to try to make it through the video anyway. What I wanted to talk about today is the subject of Buddhist exceptionalism and Buddhist modernism. And these are phrases I've been hearing a lot lately and didn't really understand what they were. So I had this little email conversation with a guy named Mark Noble, who sent me some stuff about this, including an article by a guy named Evan Thompson, who is the author of a book called Why I Am Not a Buddhist. And I've been aware of this book because, I look at the shelves that my books are on and I see it every once in a while. And I just looked at the title and the blurb on the back and thought, oh, another one of these books, and never read it. But the article that Mark sent me by the author of the book kind of does a good job of explaining what it's all about. And I'd like to read you excerpts of the article. Now, I'm looking at the article on the same screen of the computer that I'm using to record this, so my eyeline is going to go all wonky and it's going to look like I'm looking at you funny. So just bear with me and let me read you some of the article. It says, Buddhist exceptionalism is central to what historians call Buddhist modernism, the dominant strand of modern Buddhism that downplays the metaphysical and ritual elements of traditional Asian Buddhism while emphasizing personal meditative experience and scientific rationality. Buddhist modernism presents itself as if it were Buddhism's original and essential core, when in fact it's historically recent, originating in the 19th century. Religion is a term created by European scholars. It isn't native to the languages of pre-modern Asia. Nevertheless, from the perspective of the scholarly study of religion, Buddhism qualifies as a religion, and it's no more or less inherently compatible with science than any other religion. Religions consist not just of beliefs and doctrines, but also of social practices, of meaning-making, including rituals and contemplative practices such as prayer and meditation. Religions instill a sense of transcendence, a sensibility for that which exceeds ordinary experience. Every form of Buddhism, including even so-called secular Buddhism, contains these elements. Then we're skipping a little further along in the article, and it says, Buddhist exceptionalism presents Buddhism as uniquely suited to the modern world, but we can sanitize any religion in this modernist way. Consider modern Christian humanism, which stresses the humanity of Jesus, unites Christian ethics with humanist principles, promotes science, and calls attention to the Judeo-Christian and ancient Greek sources of scientific ideas such as the laws of nature. Or consider liberal Judaism, which regards the Torah as written by human beings, not written by God, and given to Moses on stone tablets, and emphasizes the progressive Jewish intellectual tradition. And he says, religion and science have never been separate and autonomous spheres. And I'm not going to read you the whole paragraph there, but he kind of goes and says that religion has often informed science, and science has often informed religion, which we can say is true. And next paragraph. The new atheists, in quotes, recognize that religion and science can't be separated in the way that Stephen Gould proposes. That's a reference to something earlier, but it doesn't matter. It's just what I just told you. But their campaigns to stamp out religion in the name of science misunderstand the meaning-making activities of religion. Religions don't explain the universe as science does. They create meaning through rituals, communities, textual traditions, and ways of understanding life's great events, birth, aging, death, trauma, extraordinary states of consciousness. The new atheists also misunderstand science. They fail to see that when science steps back from experimentation in order to give meaning to its results in terms of grand stories about where we came from and where we're going, the narratives of cosmology and evolution, it cannot help but become a mythic form of meaning-making and typically takes the structure of its narratives from religion. And then, a little further on, after saying a few other things, he concludes, this is Evan Thompson, since I'm a modern Westerner who does not wish to renounce the world and become a monastic religionist, there is no way I can be a Buddhist without being a Buddhist modernist. But Buddhist modernism is philosophically unsound, so I see no way for myself to be a Buddhist without acting in bad faith. That is why I'm not a Buddhist. And the article goes on from there, and I'll leave a link if I can find it below, and you can read it yourself. So, reading this, I think I have often come down on the side of Buddhist exceptionalism and Buddhist modernism in my books and maybe my blogs and things. I've often said that I don't think Buddhism is a religion in the sense of religions that I know of, that I know about in the West. And I have told the story a few times of how when I was first trying to get into religion as a thing, I went to churches and stuff, and I was given a form of Christianity that I know is not the only form of Christianity, but it was a form of Christianity which was scared of science, obviously scared of science, because they wanted to kind of push their narrative of the Great Flood and the resurrection of Jesus and, all these other things, the Moses on the mountain with the tablets that was mentioned in the article, as a counter to science. So this is the true story and science is the false story. And what I liked about Buddhism when it was presented to me by Tim McCarthy in the Zen form of Buddhism was that it wasn't afraid of science. It didn't have this fear of science that forced it to push against science and say, well, science is wrong and we are right. So in that sense, I got a Buddhist modernist approach. And Buddhist modernism is something that wasn't created in the West. That was my kind of mistake in understanding it when I first was presented with it, because I received basically the same form of Buddhism from Nishijima Roshi and Tim McCarthy, and one is obviously an American, one is obviously Japanese. And so this is pervasive in the West. Now, whether or not this represents the original form of Buddhism as it's often presented is kind of, to me, moot point. Everybody who presents Buddhism in a certain way insists that it's the original form. Dogen, 800 years ago, when writing the Shobo Genzo, insisted that what he was presenting was the original form of Buddhism, and that the stuff that had come before was a kind of misunderstanding or misrepresentation of a more ancient form. And so everybody does this. And we don't know, and we can never know what the original form of Buddhism was. I say that with some reservations because I think we can. I think we can know what the original form of Buddhism was by actually engaging in the practice of Buddhism. By engaging in Zazen practice, we eventually come to strip away a lot of the illusions that we have in our minds about who we are and what the world is, and we dig down to the same strata that the Buddha got to, that Dogen got to, that Bodhidharma got to, that all these other great Buddhist teachers of the past got to. And it's not necessarily Buddhism with a capital B, including all the rituals and stuff. And see, this is another sort of aspect of it. I know I'm being kind of scattershot in this video, but there's a lot I want to say. The rituals and such like that are included in, say, the contemporary forms of Zen, like I teach, or what's taught at San Francisco Zen Center, or Minneapolis Zen Center, or any other Zen center in the modern West, are, in terms of what Hindus would say, they're sadhana. They're a kind of technique. And in some ways, I don't want to say they're arbitrary, because they're not arbitrary, but they're one way of getting into it. And it's a way that's time-tested and shown to be useful for a lot of people. I won't say effective, because effective kind of implies specific results, but useful to a lot of people. And they've, like I say, they've been generated over vast periods of time, over multiple cultures, and they work. Well, they work. I'm sorry, I went there. They don't necessarily work, but they work. It's not aliens, but it's aliens, you know what I mean? And so, kind of engaging in these rituals is a way to approach something which actually is beyond the rituals. So, it's not to say that these rituals and these rituals alone will work, but if you've got a system which has been in place for a long time and used by a lot of people, then it can be useful to follow that system. That's my take on it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way, or it's the only way to express it, or it's the only way to understand it, or anything else like that. Whether Buddhist exceptionalism is true, that Buddhism alone among all the religions is the best. Well, for me, I wouldn't be a Buddhist if I didn't think it was the best. But it's the best for me. Whether it's the only religion compatible with modernity and science and all of that, Evan Thompson is right. It's not. There are others that can be, and you can make any religion kind of compatible with this. Now, the other question that comes to my mind, is modern thought and science, as it's understood currently, the right answer? That's a kind of an assumption we come to this with, because we're kind of steeped in these modern ideas of the ways of looking at the world and the scientific outlook and certain stories and narratives we have of evolution and so on and so forth, and we assume that's right. Well, I assume that's right in the sphere in which it works, in the sphere of experimentation, in the sphere of looking at the fossil record and so forth and so on. I assume that it's probably as good as we can get for now. Whether it is the ultimate answer or not is, to me, the big question, and I don't think it is, and this is why I kind of go with the Buddhist cosmology and understanding of the universe and everything. So, I don't know, maybe I should stop being such a Buddhist exceptionalist and Buddhist modernist. I'll probably start watching my language as time goes on in that realm, but I don't think that... I think the jury is sort of out on, at least in my mind, whether Buddhist modernism and Buddhist exceptionalism are the best way to present Buddhism or not. Because you could always argue that, well, these Buddhists don't do that, or they don't believe that, and blah, blah, blah. It just gets very convoluted. I just think it's an interesting topic, and I thought I'd throw it out there for you. This is not meant to be like a definitive statement on it or anything. And there you go. That's what I think of Buddhist modernism and Buddhist exceptionalism. I know I didn't really tell you, but there you go. I hope that told you something. Anyway, if you want to donate to my continuing ability to keep making videos like this, the link is below. And if you're watching on YouTube, there are links below there that tell you... I always have trouble telling right and left on this thing. So that's how to donate to me. Your donations are how I make my living. I don't make that much on book royalties, and I'm obviously not making any speaking fees right now. So, your donations are really important to me. But if you are one of the many people who's having a hell of a time economically right now, don't donate, because, I'm still pretty much okay. You don't have to worry about me, but if you do donate, that's really important. Thank you very much. See you next time. Have a good time all the time. Bye.